Sir Roland, well, my first question is, of course, unfortunately, I got that news about Bill Walton passing away yesterday. I mean, what's your thoughts on Bill? I mean, everybody knows that he played for the Clippers and for the Celtics, but how was he as a player? I believe you were the right person to ask on how Bill Walton was as a player.
Well, he was very important to American baby boomers. UCLA pro basketball was not the rage back in the 70s. The rage was UCLA,
Mhm.
uh, a college team. And of course, John Wooden had Kareem, and before that, Walt Hazzard. And UCLA had started winning championships in 64, and along comes Bill Walton. And he's a hippie and he's on his way. He's not a hippie then, he's on his way. He's the son of a San Diego social worker, but what a player. It was soon became known he loved Grateful Dead, and he became a hero. I say this. I used to play a lot of pickup basketball, and we had this group that played in a church, and we usually had 10 or 11 guys show up. And the day that Pete Maravich died, we had 25 people show up that evening to play basketball. And this was before the internet, but word got out still. And Pete Maravich is controversial player or whatever, but he charmed a lot of the baby boomers with the way he played in college and the showboat way he played when he got to the NBA. Now, Bill Walton was never a showboat, but his from UCLA all the way through to winning that championship in Portland and then on to 86 being the sixth man for the Celtics. Bill Walton was that kind of figure to so many American baby boomers. And my days of playing pickup basketball are long gone. But I guarantee I've seen it everywhere. It has stirred up, Bill's death has stirred up so much emotion across basketball. If I were in a pickup gym today, tonight, I think it would be packed with people who are wanting to grieve and share. That's really what was happening in the wake of Pistol Pete's death. And there are certain people who just come along in the culture for whatever reason they strike that chord with the public. And certainly, wow, uh, you know, uh, I've done some interviews with Bill Walton, and
Mhm.
he was a different guy before. He stuttered terribly. He was really in prison with his stuttering, and he found his way out of that prison in the 1980s.
Mhm.
And he was like a man let out of prison. Every day was a joy to him. He had always had that spirit, but to be able to move past his stuttering, he was on parole and he was out. I have a friend who did 30 years in prison and got paroled, and he has to work hard. He's in his 70s, my friend, shoveling concrete every day. But he is just every day is the best day. And Bill Walton, every day was the greatest. He had so much love for the game, so much love for the people around the game, the people who played the game, so much love for the Grateful Dead, so much love for his family, so much love for life that Bill was infectious every time he opened his mouth. He was a man let out of prison.
I mean, when you see stories, sir, when he talked, it sort of struck me. I mean, it's different from what I've seen from him after his NBA when he was doing the commentating analysis. You mean that was a very, very big difference?
Yes. And Bill suffered a lot with injury
Yeah.
with his feet. And that championship in Portland in 1977 was, the NBA wasn't um, well appreciated.
Yeah.
It had a cadre of small, loyal fans, but when Portland rose up, lost the first two games to Philly, and then came back and whipped them and won the championship,
Mm-hmm.
that was an early moment where the NBA just struck a chord. And Bill was at the center of that.
During that, the before the 80s, I mean, Bill Walton. What? How did you match up with the other good centers at the time, if you would recall? I mean, we know a lot of good big men came out during that era.
Well, Bill considered Kareem Abdul-Jabbar his shining light, and he told me so, He said it was all about Kareem, he'd said with his great enthusiasm. This was about 2005, I was interviewing him, maybe 2004. And he was going on about how Kareem was so great and had inspired him. And of course, he had followed Kareem at UCLA
Mhm.
and had taken on the challenge of keeping that UCLA dynasty going. And so when he and Kareem competed, and they had a high, high regard for each other. And this really came into flower as they were older retired players. They really gained a high appreciation, but boy, they went at it. And Bill was an extremely competitive guy. And, Kareem, by that point, he had been the MVP a bunch in the league. He had won a championship in Milwaukee. He had, been to the championship series a couple of times versus the Celtics.
Mhm.
And Kareem was in 77, he was with the Lakers.
Mhm.
And Jerry West was coaching that team, and there was a lot of intensity. And of course, Bill had his own intensity, and so that Lakers Portland rivalry was a thing. But the Western Conference had several of those kinds of rivalries. Phoenix was a growing concern right there in Seattle. The Sonics, the old Sonics, who are now the uh, Oklahoma City Thunder, they used to be the Seattle Supersonics.
Mhm.
And so the Western Conference along that Pacific coastline of the United States, they had a lot of intensity, a lot of competition. And Bill was born for that. Uh, After that championship in 77, though, his feet troubles really, really hit hard. And it looked like it might take his career. He went to, of course, the Clippers in San Diego, but he didn't find a later reconnection with the game in the big way when he became sixth man of the great Celtics team of 1986.
Actually, I was about to ask that. I mean, when he joined the Celtics, I mean, it was somehow he managed to salvage something out of his career. I mean, like you said, the injuries really took its toll on him when he was with after that MVP season and then moving into the Clippers. So Was it a fitting end to his career? I mean, with the way
Oh,
he was.
yes. He was the sixth man on that 1986 Celtics team. Bill had dealt with a lot of his stuttering issues by then, had gained a measure of power over it. The joy he played with for that 86 season, and he could do so many things. Obviously, a great rebounder, but a passer, just somebody who knew how to play basketball at a level. And to be on that team with McHale and Robert Parrish and Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge, they really just took off. It was almost like the 96 Bulls. They won so many games at home. You could not beat the Celtics in the old Boston Garden back then
Mhm.
once they added Bill that season. And they won the championship, and the next year he came back, but injuries revisited him. And so his biggest moment with the Celtics was that 86 season.
Yeah. Well, it's really surprising. Especially people in my age, we really just saw Walton. I mean, there was a lot being said about him when he was still in the '70s with Portland, but we really never figured out saw. We saw he was talented, yeah, but we never really saw him as a potential as an MVP during the season because, as you said, there was not much publicity during the '70s.
Right. I think he made 21 of 22 shots against Memphis
Mm-hmm.
in the NCAA tournament for UCLA. He did things that and he had a style, it was the 70s. There was still a lot of the spill of the Vietnam War was a huge issue, and of course he was very political, and that put him at odds with his coach. But he was sort of a hero to a generation of Americans um, were questioning the Vietnam War, who were finding the alternative lifestyle of California all across America as Bill was coming to the fore as this great center at UCLA. All across America, the 60s happened in California largely, but it spread to the rest of America in the 70s, small town America, Midwest America. And it really changed things. It was part of the drug culture. Bill was part of that. He was a huge Grateful Dead fan. He was sort of a counterculture hero in addition to being a basketball hero. And that was a big movement with the baby boomers. You wouldn't know it today because so many of them are now old people who are fearful, so they support Trump. But I would just say, I think the term is zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
When you when your time matches up with the time of history and Bill's time coming to the fore in the public eye matched him up with a history that if you looked at America today, you would be stunned
Mm-hmm.
at what America was, particularly for the youthful population in the 1970s. And Bill was an arbiter of that.
You spoke about the 1970s. I mean, Bill was part of the U.S. team to the Olympics that year, but really didn't get the breaks.
Right. I think the big thing was the rise of the Skywalker,
Mm.
David Thompson at NC State, and UCLA just dominated, just a mammoth win streak that they lost finally. I think 55 games, maybe. I forget the total, but they lost it at Notre Dame. But they went on then and they lost for Bill's senior season to David Thompson in the NCAA tournament, the college tournament. Bill told me that that loss was the most devastating. And he called it a stain on my soul. And that's sort of how he viewed all events related to competing.